In 1888, a man opened the morning newspaper and read his own obituary. He was very much alive. A French paper had mixed him up with his brother, who had actually died. The headline did not hold back. It called him the Merchant of Death. Most people would call the paper and demand a correction. He did something much stranger. He sat with it. What he did in the years after that morning quietly built one of the most famous prizes on Earth, and by the end of this video, you will have the same tool he built pointed at your own week. This is the strange, deliberately uncomfortable habit behind it, reading your own death on purpose to figure out what your life is actually for. The man's name was Alfred Nobel, and by 1888 he was already rich and already famous, mostly for one invention: dynamite. Dynamite made construction and mining faster, but it also made war more efficient, and Nobel knew exactly which use made the headlines. When his brother Ludwig died in France, a newspaper got the wrong brother. They ran Alfred's obituary instead. The write-up did not soften anything. It said the Merchant of Death was dead and estimated the fortune he had built entirely from finding new ways to kill people faster. Nobel read the whole thing, not a eulogy from someone who loved him, a verdict from a stranger, printed for an entire country to read while he was still around to see it. Most of us will never see our own verdict this clearly. He got to read his in black and white 7 years before he actually died. So he did something almost nobody does with that kind of shock. He asked what he still had time to change. Nobel did not invent this move. He stumbled into a much older discipline with a Latin name: memento mori. Remember, you must die. The clearest ancient source is a Roman emperor, Marcus Aurelius, writing to himself, not for an audience, sometime in the 170s. He told himself in his own private notebook to act, speak, and think as if he might depart this very moment. You may have heard a more dramatic version of this story, a slave riding behind a victorious Roman general, whispering memento mori into his ear during the parade. It is a fantastic image. It is also, as far as historians can tell, probably invented centuries later. There is no solid ancient source for it actually happening. The real discipline was quieter than a whisper in a parade. It was a private habit, practiced alone on ordinary mornings, not a public performance. Not to feel afraid, to feel clear. If this could be your last morning, what on your list actually deserves it? Almost 2,000 years later, a very different kind of leader stood at a podium and said nearly the same thing out loud. In June 2005, Steve Jobs spoke at Stanford's commencement, a year after being diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. He told the graduating class that for 33 years, he looked in the mirror every morning and asked himself one question: if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? Whenever the answer was no for too many days in a row, he knew something needed to change. He called remembering he would die the most important tool he had ever found for making the big choices in his life. Notice what he did not say. He did not say it made him afraid. He said it made the unimportant things fall away. Nobel had a newspaper. Jobs had a mirror. Here is the version you can use today, and it starts with one blunt number. The average human life lasts a little over 4,000 weeks. Not years, weeks. Say your age in weeks instead of years, and the number gets uncomfortably small uncomfortably fast. This idea did not stay a private journal entry. In 2014, an internet writer named Tim Urban drew it as an actual grid. 1 box per week, roughly 4,000 boxes, most of them already filled in. In 2021, the writer Oliver Burkeman built an entire book around that same grid, arguing that admitting your time is brutally finite is what finally makes it usable. Look at that grid honestly, and the question stops being abstract. It becomes, of the boxes left, what actually deserves one? This is the tool the whole video has been building toward, not a countdown to panic about, a filter for what makes the list at all. So does staring at your own finish line actually change anything? Or is it just a grim thought experiment? A palliative care nurse named Bronnie Ware spent years at the bedsides of patients living out their final weeks, and she started writing down what they told her. She published what she heard as the top 5 regrets of the dying, first as a blog post, then as a full book. Regret number 1, by far the most common, was not about working too little. It was, I wish I had had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Further down that list sat another quiet one. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends, not my career, my people. Nobody at the end of that list wished they had answered more email. The regrets clustered around honesty, rest, and the people they loved, not the inbox. To be fair, this is one nurse's professional experience, not a peer-reviewed study with a control group, but it lines up almost exactly with what Nobel and Jobs each found on their own. Notice what none of these three did. None of them heard the deadline and panicked into working harder on everything. Nobel funded prizes for the people doing the most good for humanity. Jobs cut projects that did not matter to him ruthlessly. Bronnie Ware's patients wished for less pretending, not more output. Memento mori was never a threat pushing you to do more. It is a filter, quietly removing the things that were never actually worth your weeks. You do not need a newspaper's mistake to read your own obituary. You already have the grid. It has been counting down since the day you were born. The question was never how many boxes are left. It was always what you are willing to let go of, so the ones left get something that deserves them.